you here today for this special meeting of the Tribal Transportation Working Group. At Sandag, we're working hard to bring forward a transformational transportation plan for the board of directors to consider on December 10th. And an important partner for us in bringing that forward are the tribal governments in this region. And this special meeting today is being held because I think we collectively believe that it's extremely important that we advance some tribal transportation projects sooner than later. And that's why we're here today. We've set up an agenda to have a robust discussion about some of the projects that could potentially be advanced. And I will be working with Jane and the team and my boss, Hassan, to bring something forward to the Sandag Board of Directors early next year so that we can truly get some meaningful projects done. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to welcome all of you and thank you for being here today. Because this is a Zoom meeting, we have all kinds of logistics, and I'm going to turn it back to the clerk to just kind of provide a reminder about how we'll conduct the meeting, and then we'll get started with the contents of the agenda. So I'll turn it over to Avalia, our clerk. Avalia, are you there?
Yes.
Can you provide, okay, if you can provide us, explain to us how this will work in terms of providing public comments?
As noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to emailed comments, the public also may provide live comments during today's meeting. To provide a live verbal comment during the meeting, please join the Zoom meeting either by computer or phone. At the time of public comments, members of the public are advised to raise hand. If you wish to provide comments, the raise hand feature can be found on the Zoom toolbar. For those who are joining via computer or by entering *9, for those joining via telephone only, the chair will call on members of the public by name of those joining via computer and by the last 3 digits of your telephone number for those joining via telephone. All comments received prior to the close of the meeting will be made part of the meeting record. The instructions for providing live comments also are on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of Sandag's website at www.sandag.org. Comments made by the chat are not considered public comments, so please state your comments out loud. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Avalia. And then for members here of the working group, if you would like to make a comment, just turn on your camera, raise your hand, and we can call upon you. The regular co-chair, Chairwoman Pinto, could not join us here today, so Andrew Orozco from San Pasqual has agreed to co-chair today's meeting with me, and I really appreciate that, Andrew. At this point, what I'd like to do is we go through introductions. We'll just do self-introduction. So Andrew, we'll start with you and just kind of go around to all the tribal representatives, then the agency representatives. So Andrew, start with you.
Thank you, Colleen. I appreciate that. My name is Andrew Orozco. I'm the planning director for the San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians, and happy to be here. If you don't mind, before we begin, we have some tribal leaders that are present in the meeting, and so I would like to start off with a blessing. Chairman
Wonderful.
Smith, would you be so kind to lead us in a blessing?
Okay, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. And may the Great Spirit give us guidance and work together to accomplish our goals today, and everybody turn out safe and be healthy for the new year. Thank you. Did you hear me?
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we heard you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so I gave a little self-introduction, and as Colleen said, I'm stepping in for Chairwoman Pinto. So with that, I'll pass that on to our tribal leaders and members for introductions.
Okay, I'm Robert Smith, Chairman of PALA and Chairman of SCTCA.
Chris Nahill with Paula Band of Mission Indians.
Shastagon, Environmental Director in TIPO. Paula?
Chairman
James
Zagarella. Sorry, Natural Resource Planner Paula.
James Hill, Vice Chairman for La Posta.
Have we captured all the tribal representatives?
No, this is Ray Turan. I'm also a member of the tribal working group, and I am representing John Chrisman, our chairman today.
Thank you, Ray.
Viejas.
Michael Connolly, I'm consultant to SDTC.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, what about agency staff members? We have NCTD. Beverly, are you here?
Yes, yeah, this is Beverly Neff with MTS.
Oh, it's MTS, okay. Let's see.
Leonard Gilmore, BIE Roads.
Thank you, Leonard.
Scott Chrisman, I'm the interim tribal liaison with San Diego County and joined by Richard Chint.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Richard.
Thank you, Richard and Scott.
Rafael Reyes, Caltrans District 11.
Thank you, Raphael.
And Tueri Paola Sandak.
Thank you, Tueri.
Jane Clough, the Sandag Tribal Liaison and coordinator of this working group.
Great.
Pat Mattel, Regional Planner.
Thank you, Kat. We have a couple of other Sandag staff members. Do we have Paul?
Hi, everyone. I'm here. My name is Paul. I'm a regional planner working with Jane and Kat, and I'm really excited to continue working with you all in the future.
Yeah. Paul just joined us 2 weeks ago, so we're so happy to have you, Paul.
Thank you. I'm so happy.
Do I also see Terence, our latest addition to the Sandag team?
Hi, my name is Terence Green. I'm actually a regional planning intern. This is my first full week here.
Thank you, Terence. Did we capture everyone? Is there anyone who did not get a chance to introduce themselves?
Our consultants that are presenters. Leo.
Yeah, I'll go first. This is Leo Espelid. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. We're consulting to Sandak.
Thank you, Leo.
And Matt Horton, a transportation planner, also with Kimley Horn.
Great, thanks, Matt. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, with that, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on non-agenda public comments? Clerk, do you see any members of the public wishing to speak?
I don't see any hands raised to speak for public comments.
Okay.
Yes, there is one. It's jumping up and down. I think it's National Indian Justice Center. Yeah, I just pushed.
Okay, yeah. The hand is raised now for National Indian Justice Center. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everybody. This is Kelly Myers, the Executive Director of the National Indian Justice Center. I wasn't sure that this would be an appropriate time. Some of you may know I've sent some emails out that the National Indian Justice Center would like to submit a proposal for a zero emission vehicle training project for tribal communities. And if you haven't seen that letter, just let me know and I'll send it out to you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we are seeking a letter of support from the tribes within the working group in Sandag itself. So if you have any interests or objections, please let me know. We definitely want to bring a slate of training to help create a pipeline between tribal communities and zero emission vehicle industries. And at the same time, our long range goal is to look at having more tribal transit vehicles that are zero emissions that can help fill in those voids that we may have between existing transit routes and tribal communities. If you have any questions at all, I'll hang out. And if you don't, I will let you go about your business.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions? Okay, any member communications? Not related to the agenda item today. Any communications that any of the members would like to share? Okay. Do not
There are no
see.
hands raised for public comments for members.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised with members, so we'll move on to the next item.
Sorry, just wanted, Chair Clemenson, we have another member of the SCTCA board, Chairman Martinez from Torres Martinez.
Oh, lovely.
Sorry,
Yes.
Chairman Tortes from Torres Martinez.
Would you like to introduce yourself, Chairman?
Yes, can you hear me? I'm
Yes.
Thomas Torres, the chairman for Torres Martinez Desert Cahuilla. And you're correct, I'm a member of the Southern California Tribal Chairman Association. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Chairman. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is.
Sorry to interrupt. I think we had one more public comment that we didn't get to.
Okay.
I think that
yeah,
they should be able to speak now.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi, this is Afsana Yavari. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, my name is Afsana Yavari. I'm with the UC Berkeley Safe Track, and I'd like to announce the availability of a new round of tribal transportation safety assessments. We are going to be doing 10 more or assessments for 10 more tribes, and we already have done some previously for some of the San Diego area tribes like San Pasqual, Palo, and Poma. And now we have a budget or we have funding from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, so we can do 10 more. So I'd like to let the tribes know, and if you can spread the word to the tribes to let them know that this service is available. So I sent a flyer to Jane previously, so if you can share that with everyone, that would be great, because it has all the information and the contact information. So if anybody wants to apply, they can send that. I can send them an application and they can apply. So we like to encourage the tribes that have not had any previous studies done by us. We really like to encourage them to apply for this service, and that's free to all the California tribes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm wondering, Jane, would it be okay if we postpone the motion on the minutes and just get to the meat of the agenda? I know it's taken us a while to kind of get set up here. Yeah. And then if we have to go through the roll call, the minutes, it kind of takes up time.
Yep.
And recognizing that, you know, the important agenda item here is to really get to the opportunity to hear from our tribal representatives on priorities on how to advance some tribal transportation projects. So if we could just move right along then to item 4, that would be great. Andrew, did you want to jump in here, or do you want me to cover this part?
Go ahead, you can lead off.
Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, today's a special meeting because we're asking the tribes to provide SANDAG your priorities to advance some tribal transportation projects. There are a mixture of members who are here with us today. Very, very honored to be with many members of the SCTCA, as well as representatives from our Tribal Transportation Working Group, as well as a number of public agencies who have a lot of these tribal transportation projects in their plan. So the County of San Diego, our SANDAG plan has tribal transportation projects in it. And I think one of the things that I know the tribal leaders have been meeting with the Sandag board leadership, as well as our CEO of Sandag, Hassan Akrada, to talk about what we could do to advance some projects. And we're looking to do a budget amendment, a Sandag budget amendment to advance about $5 million toward tribal transportation projects. And this could be anything from getting a transportation project ready to go, meaning do the environmental design and analysis right on through construction, or maybe there's 2 or 3 projects that we could get close to construction and then be applying for additional funds to get these constructed. We have a number of resources that we can rely upon. There's been a ton of planning work done, and I think we're kind of like, we've done the planning, let's kind of get to the project level work. It was about 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, that Sandag leadership and SETCA leadership signed a memorandum of understanding. And this was to provide planning funds from Sandag to the tribes to do more detailed planning on a number of transportation projects. So one of the things that we're able to do now, we were able to update the intertribal transportation strategy with some of that funding, and building on that success. Now, how do we start to strategize on what projects make the most sense? With that, I'm going to turn it over to, I think we've got some ideas on some early action projects. And maybe we just kind of move along to that part of the agenda, and I turn it over to Mike to start going through that presentation. Does that make sense at this point, Jane? I'm trying to expedite us along here. And then I think Leo and Matt will be able to help facilitate a discussion. So do we want to pull up Mike's slides to start going through, and then Leo and Matt will chime in on those?
Yeah, Catherine's got it.
Great, thanks, Kat.
I'm having some technical difficulties. I can't see the screen.
Oh, obligatory. Can you guys see my screen?
I see your screen, Matt.
I don't see no screen.
Nope. Does anybody see a slide that says tribal early action project selection, item 5?
Yes.
Yep, now I do.
I can see it.
Anyone having trouble seeing the slide up on the screen?
I don't see it.
Leonard
Go
doesn't
ahead.
see it.
But go ahead and continue.
Okay. It'll be such a good presentation, Leonard. You won't know that you didn't see the slides.
Hey, I believe in everybody. Yep.
Thank you, Colleen. Well, I'm gonna try to move quickly through this background part, but what we're going to talk about is the opportunity, what we've done to date, and then really the meat of it is getting into the potential project list and the tactics for selection, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss these and see what the next step should be. Next slide. So this is really a tremendous opportunity for us because we're able to go in. We've been doing planning for decades and laying out the priorities for tribes, the on-reservation and also off-reservation projects that affect the tribes, and we've had some successes in getting some of the projects funded, but there's an opportunity here where we can go in and identify projects that we can peel away from the normal process, and these are ones that collectively as a group that we find to be a higher priority, and we have a variety of different criteria that we've been developing on how we can pick those out and see what rises to the top. Another part of this is that there may be an opportunity here that if we can prove this out and come up with a good system, and if we're able to work it into the regular way of approving projects on an annual basis through Sandag, that there may be an opportunity to make this a permanent part of the process. Next slide. Colleen mentioned the support grant that we received from Sandag, and actually this developed out of that support grant. On September 30th, we met with the executive committee of SCTCA and me and Jane, and we were discussing the implementation of the different tasks and how we were proceeding on them. And the issue came up out of that meeting that they wanted to have a shift in the approach that we were using to the projects, and they wanted to have a discussion with the Sandag leadership. So on November 4th, we had that meeting. The issues that had come up with the executive committee leadership at SCTCA, and it also was a reflection of other sentiments within SCTCA, were brought forward, and there was a commitment from Sandag to identify money for priority projects for tribes that we could peel away from the regular process. November 5th, me and Jane met with the Tribal Transportation Task Force. We discussed what approach we would use. We brought in Kimley Horn as a consulting company to assist us in helping to define how we would proceed with that. November 9th and November 19th, met again with the task force, further refined what we were doing, started to develop started to see the ones that were starting to rise to the top in the process. We took the ITTS listing and began to winnow it down into the projects that met the most of the criteria that we were establishing. November 16th, we went to the SCTCA board and laid out what our process had been to that point and requested a special meeting of the tribal working group so that we could go in and bring that down even further into the priority projects that we want to send forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Leo, and he can get into the meat of what we're doing and what we've developed so far.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today and presenting, like Mike said, what are the opportunities and the options that the tribal group has in front of to make a decision. So what we try to do, and like Colleen said, there's many different ways that this $5 million could be implemented, could be used for the implementation of transportation projects. So what we're trying to do and try to decide today and help you with the process today is defining a number of different strategies. And as part of those strategies or tactics, what are the pros and cons of those tactics, and also what are the projects, the type of projects, like Mike said, that had been identified from previous leads, whether it's a ITTS leads or the regional transportation plan. Based on the tactics and the strategies, what are the projects that could be implemented? So I'm going to start with the first few slides, just giving you an overview of the tactics, the projects, and also some potential additional funding that, depending on these tactics, could supplement or complement the $5 million that Sandag is rebudgeting today. And then we'll be able to go through each of the tactics again in a little bit more detail and talk a little bit about the pros and cons. But finally, leaving you an opportunity to ask questions and discuss which strategy tactics makes the most sense for the group. So the way we structure the tactics, we have six strategies or 6 tactics. So I'm going to go through them relatively quick, and then, like I said, we'll get more detail. So the first tactic number 1, will be finding a project that could be implemented, fully implemented. And that means a project that will go through the environmental process, final design process, and then obviously the construction. So based on the funding that we know that we have the $5 million, we made a stipulation, right, that for tactic number 1, a medium-sized project will fit into that category in that tactic. And the way we defined the project size was anything over $5 million. And the bottom of the slide, you can see anything over $5 million will be considered a large project. Anything between $2 to $5 million, we classified it as a medium-sized project, and anything less than $2 million will be considered a small project. And that is important in terms of really understanding, right, if depending on the tactics and what this decision is made, the reality of what are the type of projects that could be implemented using that tactic. So number 1, like I say, will be full implementation. A project is constructed. Tactic number 2 will be, instead of funding, will be similar in terms of the goal of tactic number 2 will be the full implementation of a project. The difference between 1 and 2 will be that number 2, we felt it would be important to separate projects between north and south. So likely maybe a smaller project on the north and a smaller project on the south could also be implemented, and that's basically the difference with tactic 2. But again, the concept here is a project will be gone through environmental, we'll go through final design and construction using the funds. Tactic number 3 will be the implementation of a larger number of smaller size projects. Typically, those will be safety projects that maybe did not qualify or rank well for a highway improvement safety program or other safety programs. Those are safety projects that were already identified as part of the ITTS, and that will be Yep, sorry. Was any question?
No, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I thought it was a question. So that would be tactic number 3. Again, the full implementation of a project, but multiple projects and maybe, different projects throughout the region. So 1, 2, and 3, the concepts between that tactic is full implementation. The projects at the end of the process is constructed. We also want to look at a potential slightly different strategy and tactic. And this one, it would be one that wouldn't be able to fund the full implementation of the project. But like Colleen said, this might be a tactic where it allows for the completion of the early stages, like the environmental and the final design of potentially 1 or 2 large projects. The benefit of this tactic will be, and I'll go into more details on those in a minute, but it will allow for a project to be almost what we call shovel ready. That will be potentially more competitive for future grant project or for future grant opportunities. So tactic 4 again is the completion of the environmental and final design for 1 or 2 large size projects. Tactic number 5 is similar, but instead of picking 1 or 2 large projects, it will be a larger number of small to medium-sized projects that could go through the same process, the environmental and final design, and be ready for an additional funding source for construction and implementation. And lastly, number 6, and this is a little bit different strategy, the county, Caltrans, they have projects that are already listed either under the county CIP, Capital Improvement Program, or the SHOP program from Caltrans. The tactic number 6 will be the tribal group to use this additional funding, $5 million, to supplement and complement a potential project that has already started or is being implemented by the county or Caltrans. So those are the six tactics. And like I said in a minute, we'll go a little bit more in detail in a second. So if you want to go to the next slide, Matt. So as we're going into each of the tactics, you'll see that we're going to be presenting a number of potential projects. So where those projects came from, the project came from the 2021 regional plan, the rural corridors component, and those projects are largely coming from the 2018 ITTS efforts. We also have the projects that were in the North-South Tribal Corridor list that were identified by the Tribal Working Group back in February 2020, also identified for North and South. We also have a list of safety projects. So we did a query throughout the ITTS database related to any project that fits in the safety category. And lastly, like Mike was talking about, several of the projects came from recommendation for the tribal task force. So that's when we're talking about the projects that could be implemented as part of each of these tactics that I will present in a minute, this is the list that we use. You want to go next slide? So again, just to be clear, out of the 6 tactics that we talked about, 1 and 2 and 3 will allow for the full implementation of the project and not having to rely on any additional funding. The goal there will be use the funding, the $5 million, to complete the project. The tactics 4, 5 will rely on some additional funding mechanism. The intent on tactics 5 and 6 will be to complete, like I said, environmental and final design, and have the project, quote unquote, shovel ready for additional funding sources. So we listed, just so we all kind of have an idea what those could be, we listed some of the potential opportunities, right? So there's funding that will come potentially through the federal government, like the FTA, Tribal Transportation Program, safety funds, and then also with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there will be a lot of fundings that will be that could be you implementing and used for this using this $5 million or the environmental final design process that will come in out of those tactics. There's also, as we all know, state funding like the Highway Safety Improvement Program, active transportation, and recreational trails, and then also through local funds as part of, if you look at how the regional transportation plan is being funded, some of those projects could be funded through those funding mechanisms. So that's kind of the overarching kind of the idea of all the information that we want to be sharing today. Let's next go into a little bit more detail on each of the tactics, kind of as a refresher, and then also to discuss pros and cons of each of the strategies as we see it, and then what projects, let's put a context of what project could be implemented based on each of these tactics. So going back to tactic 1 again, this is the full implementation of what we consider a medium-sized project, because obviously with $5 million, based on how we broke down the project, we would consider a medium-sized project. So what are the pros? Well, the first positive on the implementation of tactic 1 would be that we can see the results. A project is actually implemented. I think, Colleen, you mentioned earlier, there's this sense of in the region we have done a lot of good planning. I think we've done a lot of planning and great planning. It's time for implementing projects. This is with this tactic, a project will be implemented, be in the grounds. One other positive on this tactic will be in terms of administrative costs. If having a smaller number of projects trying to be implemented will reduce administrative costs, will reduce the energy that we spend in multiple projects. So focusing in one project would be another, or 1 or 2 projects. That would be one thing that will be benefit. Some of the cons. Implementing one project for the entire region will obviously have a smaller impact to the scale of the community, and fewer travel members will benefit, right? And then at the same time, with the extensive list of projects and the need for the region, may be hard to find one project for the region, one mid-sized project for the region that that will make sense potentially. And then the other side is, there's high risk when there's only one project being implemented. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, as we all know, from an environmental phase, a cost overrun, and so forth. And we all have seen the escalation in construction costs in the last few years. So putting all the efforts into one project has a lot of risk. When we look at the type of projects, or what projects could be implemented from the list, so Matt, if you want to go to the next list, there's really 2 projects that feed, based on the list that we're using, that feed a potential tactic 1 strategy. So it will be the Central Oak Road and SR 76 intersection. That's a roundabout, a traffic calming. As we estimate costs, high-level cost estimate right now, we're thinking that this is roughly $2.3 million. So it will fit within the $5 million budget. Or other improvements, it will be like the improvement of the drainage at the Interstate 8 and Campo Reservation. So those will be drainage improvements. Again, based on our cost estimating, that will be about a $3 million project. So those are, like I say, two projects that fits from the list that we have, that fits into tactic 1. And one thing to consider, obviously, is if one of these 2 projects is picked and tactic 1 is the selected one, there will likely be additional funding. So a combination of different tactics could be used for the additional funding. But anyways, so that will be tactic 1. Now let's move on to tactic 2. So tactic 2, again, is similar to tactic 1, but tactic 2 will attempt to have a larger representation, regional representation of projects, and maybe pick a project from the north and pick a project from the south. The pros from between tactic 1 and tactic 2, some are similar, right? The impact will be the immediate positive impact. The project is constructed, we can see the results. Tactic 2 increases the regional reach, because now we're talking about projects on the north and in the south. There will be likely a positive impact for more tribal members, and obviously implements more projects from the ITTS as opposed to just one project. Some of the cons, it reduces the overall project specific benefit. So a large project or a medium-sized project may have more benefit than a smaller sized projects, right? In terms of just what the projects himself provides benefit to the region. And then because now we have multiple projects or more than one project, there will be potential additional administrative resource needs. For tactic 2, as we go through the list, there are several projects that are $1 million or $1.5 or so million or less that could be implemented using one of these tactics. One of the things to note is we listed, as we were defining the tactics originally, we listed as 2 projects, one from the north, one from the south. Based on the funding, and if our cost estimation is accurate, it could actually be 2 projects from the north, 2 projects for the south, or so forth. A mixture. The idea here is just that projects will be selected and be equally represented between the north and the south. So we go to tactic number 3. Tactic number 3 and number 2 are similar. The only difference is that tactic number 3 looks to fully implement multiple smaller size projects that not necessarily are attached to a regional north or south. So this is just general projects within the region that will fit the category. So some of the pros, it could have a larger regional coverage of projects because there are more projects being implemented. This strategy could actually implement projects that are not necessarily able to be funded through the HSIP program. And then could be implemented, again, multiple projects from the ITTS database. More projects could be implemented. And therefore, by trying to accomplish, implementing multiple projects, there's a higher likelihood that the projects will actually be completed. And this is the idea of the risk, right? There's a lot of things that when a project is being tried to implement that could come up right away, environmental, that sometimes delay or stop a project. Some of the cons will be, again, multiple projects, increases administrative costs and just processing. Again, as the projects get smaller, there's a reduction on the project-specific benefit, right? It's just more localized benefit as opposed to more regional benefits. And then the other cons, obviously, as we think in the smaller projects, there's some large projects that will not be able to be implemented, as identified in the 2021 regional plan. So those are the first 3 tactics. Again, 1, 2, and 3. The idea here is full implemented projects. A project will go through every phase and will actually be constructed. So let's go to tactic number 4 now. So tactic 4 and 5. Oh, sorry. Go back. Sorry, Matt. I jump off. So the project list that could be implemented with tactic 3 are actually the same projects that could be implemented with tactic 2. As we were developing the strategies, the difference between 2 and 3 will be that the selection will be more equally represented between the north and south, versus 3 just independently throughout the region. But the type of projects will be the same because it's based on the funding or the cost, based on what we anticipate the cost for the projects will be. And there's several projects that could be implemented with $1 million or less. So now let's go to tactic number 4. So with tactic number 4 and 5, we're shifting a little bit in the strategy, right? And again, I'm going to say it again, just to make sure we're on the same page. 1, 2, and 3, those tactics attempts to implement a project. 4 and 5, they attempt to set up a project that could later be funded through another funding mechanism for implementation. So again, we'll go through the environmental and final design phase and let the project ready and more. The intent is making it more competitive for some of the additional funding source. So tactic 4, again, tactic 4 will be, the intent with this tactic will be to actually fund the environmental and final design for 1 large or 2 large size projects, right? So the pros on here on these tactics could be, again, that the project could be shovel ready and be more competitive for outside funding. It's right to tactics 4 and 5. One of the benefits of tactics 4 and 5 is actually it's leveraging this $5 million and actually brings more dollars into the region, higher than the $5 million, the starting point. And then increases the overall project specific benefit, like we say, because now there are projects that could be implemented that are larger projects that have more of a benefit for the region. The cons and additional administrative resource needs, and again, when we're looking at multiple phases and now funding, you're looking for additional funding and so forth, there will be more administrative costs. Delays in project implementation. This is one of the challenges with tactic 4 and 5, is that it's hard to know when a project will actually be implemented, right? Because it will be dependent on, number one, the completion of the first 2 phases, which is environmental and final design, and then finding the right grant, apply for the grant, and actually get it funded through the grant until implementation. So it could be several years before the project is completed. Because of that as well, obviously the community members won't see the direct benefit, immediate benefit of the project. So some of the projects, though, that could be implemented with this strategy is, like, for instance, the I-Corridor, Willow Roads and 79 project. See, if you look at the right, now we're talking about projects that could be in the magnitude of $22 million, $17.5 million, significantly larger projects that could be eventually implemented with the use of this $5 million. But again, it will not be implemented until additional funding comes into place. But these are the larger projects that we see from the list of the ITTS and other sources and the regional plan. If we jump to tactic number 5, tactic number 5 will be similar than tactic 4. The idea here again is create projects that will be shovel ready, that could look for additional funding. The difference between 5 and 4 is 4. There will probably be a limitation of 1 to 2 projects in tactic 4 to be realistic in terms of large scale projects. Just understanding the cost of the environmental and the final design phase of projects of the large magnitude have. Tactic 5 would then, instead of doing 1 or 2 projects, will actually try to do the same, but for multiple projects, the medium to small size projects. And it will be the same strategy, trying to do a large number of those that will be shovel ready and ready for, competitive for additional funding. So some of the pros, like we said before, it could make projects shovel ready and be more competitive for funding, bring as well outside dollars to the region, and overall more regional coverage, right? And some of the cons, similar to a tactic 4, will be the additional administrative resource needs. The same thing, delayed project implementations. Projects won't be seen in the ground constructed right away, and therefore the community members won't see the direct benefits immediately. The projects that could be implemented as part of tactic 5, if we want to go to the next slide, Matt. This is kind of the going back to the same, those smaller projects that we listed as part of tactic 2 and 3. That those size projects could be put at a point where they could be shovel ready and increase implementation. With the $5 million, one can say that potentially all of these projects in this list could be put through environmental and final design and have them ready for implementation. And the last one is tactic number 6, and this is a little bit different. Another shift in a little bit on the strategy. This is more on the partnership. Will be basically the idea here is that this group will partner with either the county or Caltrans and look at some of the projects that county and Caltrans are currently implemented or planning to implement as part of their CIP program or the SHOP program, and then bring additional dollars to, number one to start the process. Some of those projects may have not even started at this point due to the requirement of funding. So it will be, bringing the dollars so the project and the phases, the process can start, and then in some points maybe modify the projects in a way that also benefit the tribal members. So some of the processing here, again, it could get project shovel ready. Some of these projects will also be, some of this funding then could be used to help the county of Caltrans to have a project gone through the process that then implemented through final additional funding that would implement the construction. Same thing, bring more dollars to the region, more regional coverage, and now a lot less administrative resource needs from the tribe because it will be partnering with Caltrans or the county or another agency. The cons, again, delay project implementation, and community members won't see direct benefits, immediate benefits. When we looked at the projects, if you want to go to the next slide, Matt, when we looked at the projects that could be implemented, what we did an overlap between some of the projects that are in the ITTS and also in the regional plan. with the projects that are listed either under Catherine Shop program or County of San Diego CIP. So like the IA projects that are listed and the SR 79 projects, those are projects that are currently in Catherine's program. And then the Ashwood Road or the Willow Road projects that are currently under County of San Diego CIP. And again, this will be an opportunity to partner with them to get those projects off the ground and implemented. So next slide, Matt. So again, going back to kind of a summary of the six tactics. The goal of today's discussion is number one, present the opportunity, present the tactics in a way that hopefully allow the tribal members to understand pros and cons and understand a strategy, and allow the tribal group to have a conversation and discussion, ask questions, and hopefully being able to make a determination on which tactic makes the most sense. And then from that tactic selection, identify what projects will rank to the top that could be implemented. So the idea here is just help with the processes of project selection. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it back to you. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add or anything that maybe I missed that you want to supplement.
Thank you, Leo. I think I got my camera turned off here too. There we go. Okay, well, at this point, we did have, you mentioned, Leo, about the ones that came to the top as part of the working group before. Do you have that? Do you have that slide still?
Yeah. So Matt, if you want to go to slide 22, you might have to turn it back on. Is the task force feedback? Next slide.
One second here, it's a hidden slide.
Yeah, sorry, we'll bring it up. Mike, this is the one that you were thinking about?
I don't see it on my screen. I still see the discussion. Oops, I know it.
Yeah, need to put the presentation mode.
Okay, I got it. In the task force, there were really three that kind of rose to the top. One of them is one that's come up many times in over the years at tribal chairmans, and that's the issue of what they call dead man's curve. It's actually there's three different curves that could fall into that category of dead man's curve, and we've done some research into that to see what could be done as far. Yeah, there's a nice shot of it, and you can see the clusters of accidents that are reported in there at each of the curves. I talked a little bit to Rafael Reyes. He's been trying to research what the cost would be to go in and try to pull those out and do a project where we increase the radius of those curves to lessen the number of accidents that we're having there. And one of the issues that we've run across is the right of way, and it's not very big in that area. So any work that we'd have to do would involve going in and getting a new right of way negotiated. So at this point in time, we really don't have any cost figures. I think it's something we need to continue to pursue and try to and get a good handle on what all the costs are and what the actions and how long it would take to go through that process. If we do have to get new rights of way, I have no idea what the length of time would be there, or who the current owners of the properties are, and how difficult it would be, or if they'd have to go through a condemnation process to get the rights of way that they would need. From a straight line, as the crow flies engineering perspective, you could just draw a straight line across and just cut that whole bend out. But just the excavation costs to do something like that is, I think he said said it was 13 or 14 million dollars. So that's then, and you'd still have the rights of way issues doing that as well. But I think the idea within tribal chairmen and some of the suggestions that have come forward were why don't we pull those out and do, instead of doing that, cut through the mountain process, do something that's less expensive involving changing the radius. So at this point in time, it looks like it's really hard to get to fold that into this process that we're doing right now. We wouldn't be able to do that in a timely manner, but I think we can take that on as an assignment to continue to get the actual costs of going in and doing that pull-out process. I don't think we've ever done that. The other two, if we can go back to the slide with the three. Oop. The other two there are the West Willows Road, and the benefits there. It says 7 tribes due to the medical facility. The clinic that a lot of the tribes in the south use is off of the westbound off ramp off of Willows Road, and also there's a lot of other services, and Ray could probably talk to that if he wants to, and go more in depth into why this would be a project that would benefit many tribes. It's a big project, and it's one that probably wouldn't get funding for a really long time, but we could pull that forward, and there would be a lot of benefit. We can't cover the entire cost. It's estimated at 11 million right now. So, but this would be an opportunity to get it to the shovel-ready position where we could then try to get another funding source to complete it. The other one on the north that came up was the intersection on SR 76 and the tie-in to the Paula Temecula Road. And there's a couple projects in there that have a lot of safety issues associated with them, and they also have multiple tribal benefits, because even though it's on Paula, that is a route that a lot of tribes take to go up into Temecula, cutting through the Paula Temecula Road, and then also a lot of people that work up at Paula. So those are what came out of the work group. Even if we, say we said those are the ones that everybody wants to go for, say the Paula and the West Willows projects, we still need to have some fallback projects too, just in case after we go through this process, because there may be some fatal flaw that we don't know about, something that's going to happen, something that turns up, and when they're starting their construction, you never know what's going to come up that may make it unfeasible, or the estimates might get thrown out the window. And if that's the case, it would be good to have at least a couple other projects that are high priority that maybe we could default to in the event that the primary project doesn't go forward. So and that's something we didn't get to that point within the task force. So does Paula or Viejas want to chime in on these projects?
This is Chairman Smith. Yeah, I mean, Dead Man's Corridor has been a priority for me over 25 years, but I know it's impossible doing the right of way. But when you talk about 76 Apollo Mission Road, is that the west side or east side of it?
Definitely the west side. I think they were thinking that also the east side could be done with this funding.
No, I think it's the east side. This is Shasta. It's the east side, 76 and Paula. Yeah, going.
Okay.
It's like that hairpin turn.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I would support that because that is a priority, so.
Yeah, Ray, did you want to say anything about the West Willows?
Yes, thanks, Mike. Yeah, we, there's several mentions about a regional importance for a project, and we have 7 tribes that access not only the Indian Health Center, as you said, Mike, but also the commercial medical center in Alpine, physical rehab center, pharmacies, grocery stores, banks, shopping, restaurants, and miscellaneous businesses. Well, that's what our tribes utilize, all of those. But if you look from a regional standpoint, this is the first major commercial center in East San Diego County. So this does have a regional importance to San Diego County and certainly to our tribe. So for everything that you mentioned, yes, we think it's an important interchange, but most importantly, we think it's no disparaging comments to Caltrans or anything, but we think this is a hazardous intersection only because of the sheer volume of traffic that's going through there for the various interchange uses that I mentioned before. So we really would like to have the shovel-ready plans and designs and studies done ready to go after that project, and would commit to putting together a consortium of those 7 tribes in order to get the funding for that. So that's the only thing I'd like to mention.
And the and West Willows is one of the one of the projects in the 2021 regional plan, as we incorporated as many of the ITTS projects as we could. So it is in the final plan that's going to the board next week.
So I know we can't, we're not really in a position to just vote on this. So this is really more of an informational meeting, and I would defer to Robert, or Chairman Smith, sorry, that as far as you know, on the next steps, after we complete our discussion here, and I do want to keep it open for if there's other people who want more information. But after that, do you want to convene as a SCTCA group at some point in the next week or two to make that final call?
Yes, yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
So at this point, we can just continue. Are there any other? Is there more discussion? Any questions that people have on this?
There are no hands raised for members or for the public on this item.
Andrew, or any comments?
No, other than, you know, we, the task force as outlined in the ITTS, you know, was really tasked with, you know, going through these projects, trying to be equitable, and so that was really the purpose of the tactics and different approaches to give the member tribes an opportunity to you know, see it from a different lens. And so these 2 projects, though, based on the feedback and directive from SCTCA, was to try and focus on maybe a few projects, one from the north and one from the south. And so, you know, I would just like to thank Kimley Horn and the task force that was involved in putting this together. And so, you know, this is really a great opportunity for you know, tribes who are present to speak and voice any concerns, questions, input, because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. We want to hear everyone at the table. So we know it's a tight window, and you know, this funding is going to be available, and we really need to take advantage of it and let Sandag hear our voice. So with that, you know, we'll see if there's any other questions or comments from member tribes or public, and we'll go from there.
Does James Hill have any comments?
I have no comments at this time.
Just also to say that in terms of sort of next steps that my understanding is that we're trying to take an RTIP budget amendment to the Sandag board in January. I think it's in January. I'm hoping it's February, but it might be January. And so that's the urgency of this, is to try to figure out if those projects, the projects that are being selected, are already in the 2021 regional plan. It's as West Willows is, it'll be a lot easier to then push to so essentially what we're going to be doing is repurposing some projects that are in urban areas, and to make way for focusing on the projects that are important to the tribes. So it's important to get some consensus on what those are. So Chairman Smith, if what would be your suggestion for making sure that the other tribal members, the SCTCA board members, would we go back to them at your December meeting?
Yeah, we could do December 21st is our next meeting, but I thought the deadline was the 10th or something, no?
Well, no, the board is the regional plan itself is going to the board on the 10th. We originally had thought we were going to take a budget amendment on the 17th, but they're going to do it after the new year.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda for the 21st. Get the consensus, take a vote.
Yeah, and so I would say if we could get a little bit more than 5 minutes, just so that we're really clear about the rationale for the projects, and then getting a consensus from the board.
Sure, just get on the page and I'll put you on the agenda.
Okay.
Hey, Chairman Smith, this is Andrew. Is there any additional information that you would like to see beyond what's in the PowerPoint?
No, I think it covers it pretty good, and we kind of worked through it last month, so we're familiar with it, but thank you.
Okay, great.
So is that it, Jane? Or?
So that's the item 5. Then we just this is still a public meeting, so we need to do the next item.
Yep.
Andrew?
Did you want to go back to item 3 being the minutes?
I think we may have to postpone post those at the next meeting. Maybe
okay,
just
not a problem.
Just
we'll move on to upcoming meetings. Okay, so item number 6, upcoming meetings. Being this is the last meeting of the year, our next quarterly meeting would be probably in March of 2022. And so this is where we see what dates work for everyone. And so if you could pull out your calendars to March of next year. If there are any dates, so it looks like we've got the 9th being the second Wednesday, 16th being the 3rd, and the 23rd being the 4th Wednesday of the month. There's actually 5 Wednesdays in March. How does the 16th work for everyone?
I vote for Viejas.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think if everyone's comfortable, or if we have some opposition, I'd like to start off 2022 with a meeting in person. And so Ray, thank you for that. If Viejas would like to host, that'd be great. And we'll have our first meeting in person in March.
And the time should be the time that we usually do, 10 to noon.
I think that'll work, 10 to noon.
Okay.
Viejas will host, and I'll give you all the details when we get closer.
Great.
Gotcha. Yeah, Ray, if you can let us know what if we haven't heard anything as far as any of those dates not working. So if you could let us know what dates work for you all, and we'll get that out to the group, that'd be great.
Aye, aye.
Okay, as far as meeting dates and topics, do we have any comments from member tribes or the public?
I don't see any hands raised for public comment. Co-chair Orozco.
Okay, thank you. All right. Unless there's anything else, we'll move to adjourn. Again, I want to thank all of the leadership who participated in the meeting today. I know it's a lot of information to cover, but this is a great opportunity. Thank you to our partners, and hope for the best and wish you all a great end of year. I hope you all stay healthy and safe, and we'll see you in March.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.